Yeah, so I'm currently 20 years old, and I always grew up in like a non-traditional household. So both my parents were activists. My mom runs a women's organization. My dad was a solar engineer. So when I was little, I remember like thinking, I was like on the playground and people would say, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I just said, I want to help people. And like everyone looked at me like, that's not a job, like what does that mean? But to me, like I always just thought about myself as like whatever I want to do is I want to make people's lives better. I want to make the world around me better, which sounds super, like Woodstocky, which I was born here. I was born in New York, but I moved up here after 9/11 when I was 3, which also was, even though you're young, was probably a hyper political time to come up here and to be in this area. And then I always, wanted to help people, but I never thought of politics as the way to do it. I consider myself an activist, so I was kind of like outside of the system. I realized that you could be a powerful advocate, but then I realized like you need to have people inside of the system that can push for changes, that can advocate for the issues that we care about. So I kind of did the typical thing. Like I was president of my student government here, and then I went to DC for college, and I went to GW. I studied political science. I was president of College Democrats there, which is the largest chapter in the country. So we have 4,000 members, which is largest, most active, which is crazy. And I was the youngest Obama White House intern. So I interned there when I was 18, did it totally randomly. And so I worked for also my senator here, Senator Gillibrand, and I kind of saw how our system worked, and realized the lack of like young, diverse voices that are really there because they care about people is like the main central thing. And I felt compelled then this summer to come back here because this district, New York 19, is a district that I think we so frequently gloss over when we talk about New York, especially when I'm even in DC. We talk about it as it's blue, it's progressive, it's all of that. We don't realize that, there are so many different communities here that are overlooked, that are hurting, that need to have progressive policies and people talking about them. So that's kind of the path that brought me here. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people woke up. You hear so many, the November 9th story of them waking up the next day and realizing, this matters. But I also think it was decisions that Faso did after he was elected. So once he took office, he was one of the deciding votes to strip away healthcare for millions of Americans. And I think, as someone, like I grew up in high school and through middle school, I had a chronic illness and having protections like with Obamacare, making sure that you're on your parents' healthcare until you're, having those protections, things like that, especially for young people. I think that we kind of realized that what FAFSA was doing was directly impacting our lives.